Oh, thank you so much, Ashley. I can't tell you what an honor it is to be here tonight. Good evening, No Kings community. This is a day for us. This is a tough day. I'm going to be really clear. It is a dark, dark day for democracy. It's a dark day for our country, and I'm not going to mince words. I didn't mince words before the Supreme Court. I'm not going to mince words before you tonight. We have a battle ahead. We lost something precious, absolutely precious, something that so many of us didn't even know was the glue holding our multiracial democracy together, and that is the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Many of us never knew a United States without the Voting Rights Act. We didn't understand that this piece of legislation is what ushered into being a society where we could all expect to vote on an equal basis and have our votes cast and counted. And we could respect the right to vote as something that we all hold in equal measure, regardless of our background, our wealth, where we come from. It was the one equalizing bit of power that we all possessed. And what the Supreme Court did yesterday is upended that by inviting partisan actors to enact maps that will entrench their power permanently and thereby diminish the votes of those people who they've locked out of power. And they are primarily Black voters, Latino voters, our growing Asian population of voters, Native American voters. And that is a huge problem for a democracy as racially and ethnically diverse as ours. So I will not pull any punches. We are in mourning. But we at LDF know how to mourn and fight at the same time. That's something we've been doing for 86 years. We know this. We know how to see impossibility and to confront it and to navigate it and then see the possibility on the other side. And that's what we're doing in this moment. So, as Ashley said, I have the honor of representing Black voters from Louisiana before the United States Supreme Court in this blockbuster case, along with our colleagues at the ACLU, who you'll hear from as well. And yesterday, the court not only struck down Louisiana's congressional map, it destroyed Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And for those who don't know, Section 2 was the last remaining nationwide statute that guarded against discrimination, racial discrimination in voting. And by killing that, the Supreme Court finished off a project that it's been doing for the past 13 years. It's been killing the Voting Rights Act in a death by 1,000 cuts. Some of you may know the case Shelby County versus Holder. This was something decided in 2013, and that took away Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, which basically said if there's a new voting mechanism or rule or policy, you got to clear it first with the federal government in certain places because there's a history of discrimination. And we want to make sure that our democracy is moving forward and not backwards, that new laws are not going to make it harder for people to vote. They scrapped that in 2013. Then in 2021, there was a case called Brnovich, which meant to really deal with the voter suppression tactics that we're all now so used to, which frankly came from the fact that we no longer had a check on new voting laws. So the Brnovich decision made it nearly impossible to challenge voter suppression laws like stringent ID laws or making it harder to vote by mail or some of the general ways that we relied on for voting and that were made more difficult by people who looked at the population of voters and chose particular rules so that they could keep those populations from voting. That's what we're talking about when we talk about voter suppression. And then finally, when we get to the decision in Calais, the last area where the Voting Rights Act was really still active in defending against the use of race as a means of entrenching political power. So manipulating Black voters by packing them in districts or spreading them out across a whole bunch of districts so that their power was diluted. We challenged that situation in the state of Louisiana, where Black voters make up 33% of the population. But before we brought a lawsuit, only could elect a candidate of their choice in one out of six districts. And so by putting on a big case and putting on mounds and mounds of evidence, we were able to convince not one, but six federal judges ultimately that there was racial discrimination in that map where only one district allowed Black voters to elect a candidate of their choice. Unfortunately, we were challenged by some white voters in the second district that we got drawn. And yesterday, the court validated that grievance and said that not only was that map that we got unfair, was it unfair, but that in fact, Section 2 as a whole is largely unlawful or certainly unusable based on the new criteria that the court has given us. So this is a significant blow for our country. Every person should feel an acute loss of momentum because we have, for the past 66 years, become increasingly diverse in the leadership of this country. We now have more women, more LGBTQ plus people, more people of diverse ethnic backgrounds, diverse religious backgrounds, people with disabilities. We have such a diverse leadership pool, still not adequate, still not fully reflective of who we are, but better and better as more people come into the body politic, as our electorate becomes more diverse and more empowered. And what the Supreme Court did yesterday was stop that momentum in its tracks by allowing partisan actors to lock whoever they want out of power in order for them to entrench their own. So we have to get out of the business of politicians picking their voters and get back into the business of voters picking their politicians. That's what elections are for. And what I can say is, for us at LDF, we've had a long history of working with the Voting Rights Act. We have not only helped the foot soldiers who fought to get it passed to do so lawfully, but we helped enforce it. We helped to reauthorize it. We helped to amend it. We helped to defend it. We helped to enforce it continually, along with so many other of our sister organizations. So for us, this is personal. This is a real blow. This is one of the tools that we used most often to help perfect our democracy and to make it live up to its constitutional ideals. So we're feeling this acutely. But at the same time, we have always been working on multiple tracks because that's what civil rights attorneys do. That's what people who were able to see past Jim Crow and racial apartheid and win Brown versus Board of Education, that's what people who subscribe to that type of vision do. And so we've been working in states across the country to try to get state voting rights acts passed. In fact, just this week alone, on Tuesday, Governor Westmore of Maryland signed in a voting rights act for Maryland. And he did that after many other states have done the same. Now, of course, none of them are in the South yet. But there is a Voting Rights Act introduced in the state of Louisiana. There's a Voting Rights Act introduced in Mississippi. And people say, oh, you're never going to get it passed in those states. And they're right. You will never get it passed if you don't introduce it. You will never get it passed if you don't start, if you don't socialize the idea, if you don't get it passed in other states so that people can see what a laboratory of democracy looks like somewhere else in the country, and then they clamor for it in their own state. So that's the type of work that we are trying to do in the face of this extreme setback and loss. That is what it is, but it doesn't mean that we don't have tools. And we are continuing to fight on that track. We are also looking at alternative systems of voting. You're probably going to hear a lot more in the coming weeks and months and years about cumulative voting and other systems of voting. And I want us to all be open to that because we have to think boldly and broadly about what is on the other side of this calamity. this calamity, this threat to our democracy. So those are some of the things that we're also working on. How can we re-envision electoral systems in this country and make them fairer? Maybe we think about proportional representation where everybody gets a representative who can advocate for them, and that makes a lot of sense in our increasingly diverse and pluralistic society. So those are some of the things that we're taking up. And we're also working to make the right to vote meaningful for everyone and accessible equally to everyone. I will flag, though, that there are a couple of immediate threats that I want everyone to be aware of. Within hours of this decision, there are states that took up the invitation that the Supreme Court sent in that opinion to enact maps that are blatantly discriminatory. So we see states like Florida and Mississippi moving forward with maps that are clearly based on discrimination. They were held to be discriminatory, or we challenged them before. There are growing calls for Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina, and Missouri to follow suit. Just today, the state of Louisiana suspended its elections so that it could try to jettison the map that we got and replace it with one that was already held to be discriminatory. So that's the fight that we're up against. And what we need all of us to do is to engage. And you can engage, for example, if this is happening in your state, by going to a legislative hearing and being present, showing them that you oppose this. More important, if you can speak up, if you can get on the roster of people who will testify and you can tell them that you want to vote on a fair map, we invite you to do that. Work with a local advocacy organization or contact the Legal Defense Fund or one of our peer organizations. And also be prepared for the upcoming election to just engage. It's important that we are all active in the electoral system that we have. And so I think I will stop there. There's so much more I can say. But as I said, as we mourn, as we say with our full chest that the Supreme Court did us dirty, we can say that. And we can also say that we are unbowed, we are undeterred, and we are not going to give up this democracy that we have been building for more than 6 decades. Not this democracy that is necessary for our safety, for our security, and for the thriving of all people who live in this country. So I'm honored to be here. I invite you to go to ldf.vote and see some of the resources that we have to empower voters and to get in touch with us if you want to engage. We are here. We've been here for 86 years. We were built for this moment, and we are not going back. Thank you.
Janai, we love you. We're so grateful for your leadership. Remember, y'all, go to the website. LDF is dropping toolkits by the dozen to help you actualize this sacred work in a town or a city near you. Make sure you check them out. Janai, we're so grateful for your leadership and your courage.